Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Welcome those of you who are joining us online. We're so grateful that you're here with us this evening. And for those of you who are here with us this evening in person, we are grateful to you. If you live in the Los Angeles area, please come and join us in person for services outside. It's such a joy and a pleasure to see you all. We're joined tonight by our intern and a daughter of our congregation, Sarah Anderson, who's about to enter her final year of cantorial school, and she's going to be spending the summer with us. We're so glad to see you. We're joined by our director of music, Maestro David Cates, and Jeffrey Stern. Rabbi Sari Laufer will be sharing some words of Torah a little bit later. We're going to begin with Shalom Aleichem. Turn to page 24 if you're here with your prayer book, as we welcome Shabbat and as we welcome each other back into community in person. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Baruchuni leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mimelech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, tzedchem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mimelech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu.
The blessing for lighting the Sabbath candles can be found on page 2. And Lauren, please come forward to light our candles. If you're at home, please light your candles along with us as we bring light into our community. We bring light into our homes. We open our hearts to one another as we welcome Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של השבת. יא אליי 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 יא אליי 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 יא אליי אליי אליי
On page 20, Lecha Dodi, this beautiful, beautiful image of the Sabbath bride, in this sense that we together as a community are celebrating this joyous moment, like a wedding, when we get to greet Shabbat and we get to be together again in community and celebrate Shabbat. Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lekha בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Just like at a wedding, that melody should make you want to dance and celebrate. Our call to worship on page 28, we prepare ourselves for the heart of our worship service.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai.
We prepare for Shema Yisrael, page 31, a prayer that celebrates creation and it celebrates this moment of transition as day slowly turns to night. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Shema Yisrael, page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto le'olam va'ed.
Can be seated. Michamocha is our prayer of freedom, our prayer of liberation. We celebrate that moment in our people's history when we experienced freedom and liberation, and we remind ourselves that every day we have the ability not just to give thanks for freedom, but also to do tangible, concrete things to bring freedom into the world, freedom for ourselves and freedom for others. Michamocha.
Yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך הוא ברוך שמו.
גל ישראל.
As we turn to a prayer for healing, I want to share words by modern liturgist Alden Salavi in Jerusalem. These words tonight are particularly directed to families in Miami, the families who are waiting for news, the families who are in hospitals hoping their loved ones recover, and families whose hearts are breaking. And though those words are perhaps directed to Miami, they are for us as well, because we also sit here or sit at home sometimes waiting for news, or sitting in hospitals, or sitting with broken hearts. And so at home, if you want to share someone whose healing you are praying for, please add their name in the chat, and here in this space, just shine their names forward as we offer these words. All things burn, are buried in rubble, or extinguished in a torrent, even our hearts, except perhaps when love rises like a spire between us. Pray for those in Miami. Pray for healing. Pray for healing for all who burn with sorrow. Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of a body, the renewal of a spirit, and let us say Amen.
I've always found the wisdom of the rabbis around the evening prayers to be perhaps prophetic, that even in their time, when I think there were a lot fewer words or a lot fewer ways to receive those words, they understood that sometimes we just need space to breathe and space for quiet. And so they decided all those years ago that our evening prayer, unlike morning or afternoon, should be said silently. And so as we come to the end of a day and we come to the end of the week, we have a little bit of space, just a little pause, a chance to go within and hear maybe the beautiful sounds around us, but not all of the chatter, and maybe for a moment hear the sound of our own voice and our own hopes and our own thanks and our own fears. And so we turn now to the silent Amidah. The blessings begin on page 46 and continue through, and we invite you to pray the words in the Siddur or the words that are in your heart.
והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי, אדוני צורי וגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Yehiyu leratzon imrefi, lehegion libi lefanecha, Adonai tzori vegoali, Adonai tzori vegoali.
So nice having you back, Sarah.
It's great to be back.
And it's so nice having you back and having you back. As we said, I keep telling people actually, both here in Los Angeles and everywhere, just how beautiful it is up here in the evening. So if you are watching from home and can get here on a Friday night, we really do invite you to join us. The people here can assure you it's beautiful, it's peaceful. And so we hope we'll see you, but we're happy to have you and all of you. All these years later, I can still remember the first line of one of my college essays, partly because all these years later, the scenario that gave it to me still seems somewhat implausible. That's a killer foothold, those essays began, quoting the bearded athletic rock climbing instructor who was, as I recall, pointing at a tiny crevice of a sheer rock face somewhere in Colorado. Now, those of you who might have followed our family adventures over these Corona times know that I do love hiking or strolling in a pretty place and the beauty of nature, but I am not, and certainly was not then, necessarily what one would call outdoorsy or athletic. But there I was, a New York City 16-year-old clinging to a belay rope and putting my trust that this was indeed the killer foothold that would propel me upwards. I, not shockingly, did not stick with rock climbing, but I suppose that in some ways, at least through those words, rock climbing stuck with me. Because there have been many times where I have felt stuck or unsure of my next step, and unbidden, those words come to me. That's a killer foothold, I still hear. And I remember that sometimes the next step is not a clear path or a wide avenue. Sometimes it's a tiny crevice, a space to wriggle and wiggle, a spot to take a quick breath and then move forward. And I remember that sometimes the words you need to hear or the path you need to take comes when you least expect it. Sometimes our unlikeliest teachers give us some of our most enduring lessons. In Torah, of course, this is a week of revelation in unexpected places and from unexpected voices. Here we have Balaam, hired by the king of Moab on his way to curse the Israelites. Here we have an angel of God standing in his path, unseen except by a donkey. And here we have the donkey swerving and kicking, an attempt to both avoid hitting the angel and to alert Balaam to its presence. And here we have Balaam growing frustrated and lashing out at the donkey. And here we have the donkey granted the divine power of speech, telling Balaam to look at what was right in front of him. Whether satire or fantasy, we cannot help but hear the message, which I quote tonight from the great sage and Grateful Dead lyricist Robert Hunter. Once in a while, you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. So there's this interesting move by our rabbis trying to explain this anecdote. Now, as a group, they are, I think our Talmud scholars among us would agree, they're pretty unwilling to acknowledge excellence on the part of a non-Jew or a non-Israelite. And yet our sages paint Balaam as la creme de la creme of the sorcerers. In one midrash, they make a fairly radical claim that he's able to communicate directly with the Holy Blessed One. And in another, they compare his intellect with that of Moses himself. That is to say, Balaam is portrayed as a formidable mind, smart and aware of the world around him. And yet, per the story and the message, it takes a talking donkey to awaken his eyes and his soul and his heart to what is right in front of him. It took the impossible to help him see the necessary, probably because he didn't think he could or needed to learn, especially from a donkey. My grandpa Jack, of blessed memory, is one of the namesakes for my son Jacob. And on the day we welcomed our Jacob into the covenant, I offered him these words. I told him, not that he remembers, but I told him, my grandpa Jack bore an uncanny resemblance to renowned Mayor Ed Koch, but was also treated like the mayor in his town and the restaurants he frequented. Everyone knew him, and more importantly, he knew everyone. My grandpa Jack knew their names, a little of their story, and he would truly invite anyone from a busboy to the maitre d' to an old friend to pull up a chair, have a drink, Cutty Sark and water, and spend some time together. And I said to my Jacob, I can only hope that you inherit his generosity of spirit, his curiosity, and openness to the people around him. Truly, there was no one with whom my grandfather would not chat or raise a glass. I remember that his favorite waiter at their favorite restaurant, who was not born in America and was certainly not Jewish, gave me a Magen David when I became bat mitzvah, probably because my grandfather had sat with him, had shared his stories, and asked about his life. My grandpa Jack loved learning about people, and I think he really loved learning from people. Now, tonight is the final Shabbat of Pride Month, and I was thinking back to Jerusalem Pride in 2015. Well, I was not there. Maybe you were, Rabbi Yoshi. No? I was not there, but I was stunned and saddened by the murder of Shira Banki, a young woman who was stabbed to death by a Haredi man who was deeply offended by the Pride March in the Holy City. But in response, I was heartened as signs went up all over the city with a rainbow flag and with words from Torah on which Hillel bases his famous quote, saying, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Only on these signs all over Jerusalem, there were 3 words added. V'ahavta l'reacha im hu lo kamocha. Love your neighbor if they are not like yourself. Love your neighbor if she looks different from you. Love your neighbor if he loves someone different from you. Love your neighbor if she believes something different from you. Much ink, literal and virtual, has been spilled over the concerns about bubbles and the lack of communication across divides in American society. Coined by internet activist Eli Pariser, the filter bubble is the term for the state of social media isolation in which many of us live. He teaches about how website algorithms just guess what information we want to see based on what they know about us, such as where we live, what we've clicked on before, and what we've searched for maybe in the middle of the night. And because of that, we become separated from information that disagrees with our viewpoints, sort of isolating us in our own cultural or ideological bubbles. It's unclear, there's a lot of data. It's unclear how much that is actually true, but I think that in a time of increased polarization, amidst all of this language around fake news and misinformation campaigns, there is this challenge to the fabric of our social compact, of our command to love our neighbor as ourselves. Now, organizations, we've been talking about a lot of them, have sprung up trying to help people of diverse backgrounds and even more so of diverse belief systems to talk. Not to convince one another of our rightness, but simply to see each other, to hear each other's stories, and maybe to learn from an unexpected voice. We here have been working with Resetting the Table, which is one of those organizations, and we're hoping to bring more opportunities here in our wonderfully diverse community. V'ahavta l'reacha im hu lo kamocha. Love your neighbor if they are not like yourself. And if love is a bridge too far, if you can't quite get to love, can you hear them? Can you still learn from them? We are all in need of revelation, of new information and perspectives. Maybe we all need a donkey or a rock climbing guide to shake us from our complacency and force us to look differently at the world and the path in front of us. Where will we find one? And when we do, will we actually listen? Once in a while, you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Sari, for that important message. And I was thinking when you were talking about the kinds of communities that we want to create and the ways we want to celebrate differences and similarities and just celebrate each other, how troubling these last few months have been as we've seen this very frightening uptick in anti-Semitism here in the United States and around the world, anti-Israel rhetoric. And we think about ways that we can build communities where we really embrace each other and we are embraced as Jews and we're able to embrace others. And so when we offer this prayer for our country on page 258, we can think of ways that we can continue to try to build those communities, speaking out against hatred and bigotry of all forms, no matter where we see it or hear it. We think about ways that we really can embrace one another and love one another, even when, and maybe especially when, we realize we are different in fundamental ways and similar in so many others. So let's say this blessing for our nation, for ourselves, and for others, for our entire community, in the middle of page 258. Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness. And on the following page, a prayer for Medinat Yisrael, a prayer for the state of Israel.
Avinu Shebashamayim,
Together, O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there, as we say together, Amen. Some of you know that I like to find ways to celebrate joyous moments in our congregation and ask folks here to stand as I call out different things that we might be celebrating. And for you at home, please feel free to put in the chat something good that's going on in your lives. There is so much tsuris in our world. We really have to find those moments of joy as well, and there are many of those moments. So I'll just ask anyone here, if you have a birthday this week, please stand up. We're all going to end up standing in a little bit, but if anyone here is celebrating a birthday this week, please stand up. Statistically unlikely that there's no birthdays. Okay, how about, what do we have? Ben Cutter. Thank you, Ben, if you were tuning in from home. How about an anniversary? Maybe the anniversary of a wedding or the anniversary of a divorce. Maybe you could... Thank you. That one always gets a laugh. How about a graduation? Anyone graduate from something? Bar bat mitzvah coming up. Graduation? Mazel tov. Mazel tov. And those of you, again, at home, please share some of these smachot, these joyous times with us. How about anyone celebrate a birthday in the last 12 months? I told that joke last week and you laughed just as heartily. And I don't know what that means. So let's all stand up.
It's a good one.
And thank you. And let's say these words of Kiddush and celebrate the sweetness in our lives.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu b'charta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
L'chaim, everybody, to life. Page 282, Aleinu L'Shabeach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר וראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated. A reading in preparation for our prayer of memory, and as Rabbi Sari referenced earlier, we're thinking especially of those folks in the Miami area who are praying for news of their families and hoping against hope that people are okay. But we know that there have been many losses already, and we'll learn more about additional losses in the days to come, sadly. And so we join in solidarity with all of those mourners. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love we are comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. It is that faith, despite our questions, that helps us to find strength and comfort in moments of loss. I want to invite anybody here present on our campus who's in a period of Shiva or Shloshim to please rise. And those of you at home, if you're in that same period, you can type the name of a loved one in the chat. If you're in the first 12 months of mourning the loss of a loved one, please rise. And similarly, please share that name or those names with us at home. And finally, if you are commemorating the yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one this evening, please rise. We pray that you find comfort in the memory of all those that you love, and together we rise in solidarity with you, our beloved mourners, as we give thanks to God for the gift of those lives that we have cherished and that we miss. Page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divara chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye echon uvyom echon, uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who makes peace in the high places make peace for us here on earth, for us and for all Israel and for all humanity. And we say together, Amen. I want to invite you to be seated. I want to offer words of gratitude to everybody who's joining us online and for everybody who's here with us in person. I'm so grateful to our summer intern and, as I said, daughter of our congregation, Sarah Anderson. Thank you for sharing your beautiful davening with us. And to Maestro David Cates and Jeff Stern, thank you so much for everything you do to lift us up and to bring us a sense of kavanah, a sense of intention. Rabbi Sari, thank you for your words of Torah. And we have an amazing crew. Those of you who are here can see the crew, but at home, the whole point is you don't see them. But we're so grateful to Roz and Andre and to John and to Tyler. And we're just, we couldn't possibly do this without you. And thank you, Jennifer Smith, for being here this evening, our ops crew for making everything happen here at Stephen Wise Temple. Please, folks who are here tonight, say thank you to all these amazing people. And folks who are at home, you can send a message in the chat or send an email just saying thank you to everybody who tries to work so hard to lift us up and have helped us so much over these last 15 months. And now we're back together, and we want you to come and join with us. Our closing song, Oseh Shalom, at the very bottom of page 294. We're praying for peace and wholeness, comfort and goodness for us, for all Israel, and for all the world. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.